The envelope was thicker than our payroll packets and stamped certified. I slid a finger under the seal at my desk. Tuesday, 8/12/A. Inside sat a 3-page contract addendum with my name crossed out and Noah Holt typed above it. I checked the footer and froze on one line. Assignment effective only upon countersignature. There was no countersignature. If this held, I did not just lose my job. I lost my health insurance, my bonus vesting, and the mortgage buffer I needed by May 15th. The hallway outside Human Resources went quiet as I folded the pages. "Read the last paragraph," I whispered to myself. My coffee had gone lukewarm in the break room mug warmer. I carried it back anyway, like routine could protect me. The plant always smelled like hot metal and floor cleaner before the first shift. Forklifts beeped somewhere behind the pallets, and the time clock clicked in steady pairs. I set the contract on my keyboard and slid my red folder tab out from my drawer. That red tab was how I survived here. Payroll audits, vendor disputes, health plan enrollment problems. Red tab meant, don't lose this, don't forget this, don't trust anyone's memory. I smoothed the pages flat with my palm. The paper was too crisp, like it had never been passed hand to hand. My name was still visible under the black line, like they wanted me to see the bruise. I could hear Derek Holt's laugh down the hallway, the kind that filled a room and made people nod even when nothing was funny. Derek was the department director. He loved calling this place a family, especially when he wanted something done without questions. On my phone, my partner's last message sat unanswered from the night before. Heading home late, don't wait up. No explanation. No little joke, just that. Something felt staged, like everyone had read a script except me. I opened my email and searched my name, slow and careful, fingers hovering before each click. Payroll and compliance meant I lived inside other people's mistakes. I knew how a plan collapsed. It always started with one careless line. I found a thread with a blurred header, the sender masked by our security filter. The subject line was clear enough to sting. Operations lead transition effective April 1st. My stomach tightened around my coffee. I clicked, then stopped. No attachment loaded, just a thin line that said, C, executed, addendum attached. And the word executed sat there like a lie with its shoes still on. Don't sign anything today. That thought hit hard, sharp, and ugly. I stood and pushed my chair in. The wheels squeaked on the concrete, loud in my ears. I tucked the contract into the red tab folder, then held it under my arm like a shield. I walked toward the hallway outside Human Resources. 2 women from assembly were already there, whispering near the water fountain. When they saw me, they stopped too fast. Their eyes dropped to my folder, then to my face. That small shift told me the rumor had already outrun the paper. I kept moving. Janice Morrow stood at the copier, feeding it a stack of forms with her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. Janice was a senior clerk, which meant she knew everything before it was official. She glanced up, saw the certified envelope corner peeking out, and her mouth twitched like she tasted something sweet. "Morning, Maria," she said, too gentle. "Morning," I said, and didn't slow down. My badge tapped the Human Resources door sensor. The light blinked green. Inside, the office smelled like lemon wipes and printer toner. Reena Patel's door was half open, her nameplate polished like she rubbed it when she was nervous. I knocked once and stepped in. Reena sat behind her desk with a legal pad centered perfectly in front of her. Her pen was lined up with the edge of the paper. She was dressed like she had a meeting with someone important. That, too, felt staged. "Maria," she said, smiling without warmth. "Come in." I sat and laid the red tab folder on the desk between us. I didn't open it yet. I watched her eyes track the folder like it might bite. "I received this," I said, tapping the certified envelope with one finger. Reena's smile didn't change, but her hand moved toward her pen. She clicked it once, twice. "That is related to staffing," she said. "We can discuss next steps." "Next steps for who?" I asked. She inhaled, then looked past me, as if Derek might be standing in the corner giving her courage. "Operational leadership is shifting," she said. "It is. Timely, timely," I repeated. My voice stayed even, but my leg bounced under the chair. Because Noah is back in the building? Rena's gaze flicked down. That was her tell. She avoided conflict by hiding behind paper. This is not personal, she said. It is a business decision. I slid the folder closer to her, stopping it right at the edge of her blotter. The red tab faced her like a warning. It became personal when my name got crossed out, I said. Rena swallowed and reached for the folder, then pulled her hand back, like touching it would make her responsible. What does your partner know about this? She asked, and the question landed wrong. Too specific. Too early. I stared at her. Why are you asking about him? It is a small company, she said quickly. People talk. I leaned forward. No. That question came from somewhere. Rena's cheeks colored. She straightened her shoulders and tried to regain control. Derek wants this handled smoothly, she said. There is an all-hands meeting later. We would prefer no disruption. A disruption. That was what I was to them. Not an employee with 15 years of clean audits. Not the person who caught a payroll error before it became a lawsuit. A disruption. I opened the folder and pulled out the addendum. I didn't shove it at her. I placed it down gently, then smoothed the page once, slow. My finger landed on the line that mattered. Assignment, effective only upon countersignature. I read aloud. Where is it? Rena's eyes tightened. Legal reviewed that. All about. Where is the countersignature? I asked again. She glanced at her desk drawer, then at her computer, like the missing signature might appear if she looked away. Calvin Brooks is outside counsel, she said. He advised on language. Advice is not a signature, I said. Rena's pen clicked again, her voice lowered. Maria, I'm asking you to be reasonable. I felt my jaw set. Reasonable was what people asked for when they wanted you to surrender politely. I am being reasonable, I said. I am asking for the one thing your document claims exists. Rena's eyes flicked to the door. Someone was walking past in the hall. Heavy steps. Confident steps. Derek. I closed the folder, keeping the addendum visible on top, and slid it back under my arm. I stood up. I'm going to my desk, I said. Maria, Rena called, voice sharper now. Do not make this harder. I paused at the doorway, hand on the knob. I didn't start this, I said, but I can finish it. Thank you for watching and a 70-40. When I stepped into the hallway, Derek Holt was standing there with Noah beside him, smiling like the job was already his, and Noah was holding a fresh badge that had my title printed under his name. By 9 o'clock, the conference room chairs were packed tight. A row of folding seats lined the back wall, and people stood anyway. The plant manager's coffee cart sat by the door like a peace offering, creamers sweating in a plastic bin. I walked in with my red tab folder hugged to my ribs. My phone felt heavy in my back pocket. I could still see that subject line in my head, sharp as a cut. Operations lead transition, effective April 1st. Noah stood near the front, wearing a fresh badge on a stiff lanyard. He kept rubbing the edge of it with his thumb, like it proved something. Derek Holt stood beside him, hands clasped, smiling at the room like he was about to announce a charity raffle. Rena Patel sat at the long table with a legal pad and a capped pen. Janice Morrow had taken a seat near the aisle, her purse on her lap, eyes bright. A few supervisors from first shift leaned against the wall with crossed arms, watching me instead of the front. My partner was supposed to be here. He always sat 2 rows back, near the outlet, pretending he needed to charge his phone. I scanned the room anyway. Empty chair. No lanyard. No familiar shrug. I swallowed and chose a seat halfway down, close enough to speak if I had to. My knee bounced once, then I forced it still by pressing my heel into the floor. 2 words kept repeating. Stay calm. Then Derek stepped forward and tapped the microphone on the podium. Once, twice. The speakers popped. A few people laughed politely. This will be quick, Derek said. We're making a leadership adjustment to support growth. He said growth the way people said weather, like it was unavoidable. Noah lifted his chin and smiled, aiming it at the supervisors first. He did not look at me. Derek continued, effective immediately, Noah Holt will serve as operations lead. A few claps started. Not many, mostly the kind that sounded like hands meeting out of obligation. My red tab folder pressed into my forearm. I slid it onto my lap and opened it halfway, feeling the smooth paper edge. Don't let it be a scene, I told myself. But Derek had already made it a scene by saying my replacement's name out loud. He added, "We appreciate everyone's flexibility. This decision is final." Final was a control word. It always was. I pulled my phone out and woke the screen, not to scroll, just to anchor myself in something real. My inbox sat there, and I tapped the thread. The security filter still masked the sender. The subject line glowed at the top. Operations lead transition effective April 1st. I tilted the screen down so no one could see it, then slid the phone back into my pocket. My fingers were cold when I clasped them together. I raised my hand. The room shifted. A couple heads turned fast. Someone cleared their throat. Derek's smile tightened like a belt. "Yes, Maria," he said, too friendly. I stood. My chair scraped. The sound bounced off the walls, louder than it should have been. I held up the red tab folder, not like a weapon, like a file that belonged in the light. "I received a certified addendum this morning," I said. "It removes my name and inserts Noah's." Noah finally looked at me. His eyes flicked to the folder and back, confident, like he expected me to fold. Derek's voice stayed even. "That has been handled. It has not been executed," I said. A ripple went through the room. Not noise, exactly. More like breath being held. Rena's pen uncapped with a soft snap at the table. Derek's eyebrows rose. Executed by legal. I opened the folder and pulled out the addendum. I did it slowly, so the motion stayed controlled. I placed the page on the podium ledge without letting my hands shake. Then, I smoothed the paper once, flat. The microphone was still on. The room could hear every small sound. I pointed to the line with my index finger. "Assignment effective only upon countersignature," I read. "There is no countersignature." A hush fell hard. Even the air conditioner sounded louder. "Say it once more." "On record." Noah's smile slipped for the first time. He shifted his weight and glanced at Derek, quick, like a kid checking if a parent would step in. Derek leaned closer to the microphone. "That is an internal matter. It is a contractual condition," I said. My voice stayed steady, but my chest felt tight. If the condition is not met, the assignment is not effective. Rena's eyes locked on the paper. She did not look at me. Derek's jaw worked once, like he was chewing a thought. Then, Noah stepped forward, and he did something careless. He reached out and tried to snatch the page. I slid it back just out of his reach and kept my finger on the clause. "Do not touch my documents," I said. The words came out low, not loud, but they cut. A couple people in the back shifted, and someone whispered, "Did she just—" Noah's face reddened. "You're acting like this is about you," he said, voice sharp. "It's about the company." That was an attack. A clean one. Make me look selfish. I did not answer him. I turned to Derek. "Who sent the certified packet?" I asked. Derek's smile returned, smaller. "Human Resources coordinated delivery." I looked at Rena. She stared at her legal pad like it could save her. "Did you coordinate delivery?" I asked her. Rena lifted her gaze slowly. "We follow leadership directives," she said. That was an evade. Hide behind process. I nodded once, then leaned into the microphone so the room would hear me without shouting. "I also received an email thread this morning," I said. The subject line states, "This transition is effective April 1st. Derek's eyes narrowed. "Emails are not contracts. They are intent," I said. "And intent matters when paper is missing signatures." Janice shifted in her seat. I saw her hand slide to her phone, thumb hovering. She was already thinking about what could be repeated outside this room. Derek stepped off the podium and moved closer to me, like proximity could push me back into place. "Maria," he said, softer now, for the room to witness his patience. "This is not the forum." He was trying to control. "Bring it private." I held my ground. My fingers stayed on the page. "Then why was the announcement made in this forum?" I asked. A few people nodded before they could stop themselves. Noah's hand curled into a fist at his side. "You're embarrassing yourself," he snapped. I turned my head just enough to look at him. "I'm not the one holding an invalid badge," I said. The room made a sound then. Not a gasp. More like the first crack in ice. Derek's face hardened. Rena finally spoke, voice clipped. "Maria, we need to meet with outside counsel." "Today," Derek added. "Immediately after this." I stared at Derek, then at Noah's badge swinging against his chest. The title on it was crisp, black letters. Operations Lead. It was my title. It had been my title. Now it hung from his neck like a dare. I reached into my folder and pulled out the certified envelope itself, the green tracking strip still stuck to the back. I set it on the podium beside the addendum. Then I said the one thing I knew would force a record. "Put the counter-signature on the table," I said, "or admit it does not exist." Derek did not answer right away. He took one step back, lifted his phone, and typed with both thumbs, eyes never leaving me. A second later, my phone vibrated in my pocket. When I pulled it out, the new message preview showed a single line from Derek's number. "Security is on the way. Do not let her leave with that folder." I kept my face still while my stomach dropped. Security was not about safety. Security was about possession. I folded Derek's message into my pocket like it was a razor. Then I slid the addendum back into the red tab folder and held it tight against my side. The paper made a soft crackle as I pressed it flat with my palm. Noah watched me like he expected me to panic. I didn't. I looked at the room and forced my voice to stay level. "I'm going back to my desk," I said. "I have payroll to close by noon." Derek stepped closer, smiling like he was doing me a kindness. "We'll walk with you." That was control dressed as courtesy. I nodded once, then turned before he could touch my folder. The hallway outside the conference room felt narrower than usual. People pretended to check their phones. Someone turned their badge around like it had suddenly become interesting. Janice followed at a distance, her shoes tapping too fast for a casual walk. At my desk, I sat down slowly and opened my drawer with one hand. I slid the red tab folder inside, then pushed the drawer shut with my knee until it clicked. I did not breathe out until that click. A man in a black polo stepped into the aisle and stopped behind my chair. His belt held keys and a radio. He didn't say his name. He didn't need to. Derek came up on my left. Noah hovered on my right, close enough that I could smell the sharp mint on his breath. "Maria," Derek said, low, "you can't remove company documents." "I'm not removing company documents," I said. I lifted my hands and placed them flat on my desk. "I'm doing my job." Noah leaned in. "You're making this ugly." I turned my head slightly. "It was ugly when you put on my badge." And quote, the security man cleared his throat like he was reminding us he existed. Derek's smile vanished. "Rena is scheduling a meeting with outside counsel. You are to wait." Wait meant sit still while they rewrite you. I opened my email again, not to argue, but to anchor myself in work. Payroll and compliance lived in numbers, not in smiles. I clicked into the payroll system and pulled up the week's deposit report. My hands looked steady, but my fingers tingled like they were touching cold metal. The first shift payroll run had already been queued. The totals were normal. The tax withholdings were normal. The overtime looked normal. That was what made it dangerous. Normal was where people hid theft. I clicked into the direct deposit batch list and scrolled. Names, amounts, dates. I moved like I was doing routine checks, because I was. Then I saw something that did not belong. Noah Holt. 2 deposits. One for $850, one for $850 again. Split deposits were allowed, but only with a signed request form. And split deposits were almost always used for child support or debt settlements, not for a brand new operations lead who had not even completed onboarding. I clicked into the deposit detail. My cursor hovered before I opened the history, like my body already knew what I was about to see. The secondary account number ended in 4,412. I stared at those last 4 digits until they blurred. My partner's account number ended in 4,412. I didn't know that because I snooped. I knew it because I paid our mortgage from it when his card stopped working last winter, and the bank teller read the last 4 digits out loud while I stood at the counter holding my driver's license with shaking hands. 850. 850. Same day. I leaned back in my chair and felt the air leave my lungs, quiet and slow. This was not just nepotism. This was a pipeline. My partner wasn't just siding with them. He was connected to the money. I opened the deposit routing report and printed it, 1 page only. The printer across the aisle whirred and spat out the sheet with a warm curl. I stood, walked over, and picked it up before anyone else could. The paper trembled slightly in my grip. I folded it once, then slid it into the red tab folder in my drawer, beneath the addendum, like I was building a stack that would not be ignored. It's not a replacement. It's a transfer. That knife-line hit, then I forced myself back to motion. I checked the authorization file. No signed request form, no employee change ticket, no approval stamp, just the deposits, clean and quiet, like someone thought numbers would never speak. Behind me, Noah said. She's stalling. There's Intenovin to daughter, Derek answered. Give her a minute. They were watching my screen, so I changed what they could see. I opened a neutral report. I clicked through harmless tabs. I acted like I was reconciling totals. I let them think this was still about a missing countersignature. Then I did the thing I should have done sooner. I called my partner. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I set my phone down and watched the screen go dark. He had blocked me. My throat tightened, but I didn't let it become a sound. I stood and turned to Derek, keeping my hands empty, my posture calm. I want the outside council meeting, I said. Now. Derek's eyes narrowed. You don't get to make demands. I reached into my drawer and pulled out the red tab folder, holding it closed with my thumb so no page flashed out. I did not wave it. I just held it like weight. I'm not making demands, I said. I'm preventing a compliance violation. End quote. The security man shifted. 1 foot forward, waiting for Derek to decide whether my body was a problem. Derek stepped closer until his voice could be soft and dangerous. You're not going anywhere with that folder. I kept my voice low. Then walk with me. But I'm not staying silent. I'm not your disruption anymore. Those deposits tied him to me. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced down, and the color drained from his face in a way I had never seen. He looked up at me, and for the first time his voice lost its polish. Close your drawer, he said, right now. What? I asked. He swallowed hard. Close it, and don't touch anything else. The security man's radio crackled with a voice I couldn't fully make out. One phrase came through clear, clipped, and wrong for a workplace. Incident report number is ready. The words incident report number did not belong here. Not in a manufacturing plant at 9:30 in the morning. Derek's face had gone tight and gray, like someone had pulled a plug. He kept staring at his phone screen, then at my hands, like he was counting what I could grab. The security man lifted his radio closer to his mouth. Repeat that, he said, quiet. The radio crackled again. Incident report number is ready. Front desk. Front desk meant the entrance lobby. Visitor badges, sign-in logs, the spot where cameras stared down like unblinking eyes. I swallowed and pushed my chair in with my knee. The legs scraped the concrete. I kept my movement slow on purpose, like I was handling a spill that could spread. What incident? I asked Derek. He didn't answer me. He looked at the security man instead. Walk her, Derek said. No stops. Noah's smile had disappeared. He kept rubbing the edge of his badge again, faster now, like friction could erase what I knew. I reached for my drawer. Derek flinched. I said, close it. That is a cordita. I'm closing it, I said, and I made sure my tone stayed flat. Inside the drawer, the red tab folder sat under my fingers. Warm paper, sharp corners, proof with weight. I slid the drawer shut, then did something small and deliberate. I took my keys off the desk hook and slipped them into my pocket. Not to run. To keep control of my own body. We started down the aisle toward the hallway outside Human Resources. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. Someone on the line shouted for a wrench, and the sound faded behind us. A forklift beeped twice, then stopped, like even machines sensed tension. Janice Morrow popped out from behind the copier and fell in step 10 feet back. She held her phone low, screen angled toward the floor, thumb hovering like she was waiting for the moment worth saving. I hated her for it. I needed her for it. Rena's office door was open again. She stood in the doorway like a gate, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Rena, Derek said. Clipped. We're going to the front. Her head snapped up. Why? Derek didn't answer. He just moved. Noah leaned toward Rena as we passed. She's trying to sabotage this, he hissed. Rena's eyes flicked to me, then away. She did not defend me. She did not even pretend. I kept walking. Outside, Cleveland winter air pressed against the glass doors, dull and pale. The lobby smelled like wet coats, and the lemon cleaner the janitor used every morning at 6. The visitor desk sat under a fluorescent panel that made everyone look tired. A woman I did not recognize stood at the desk with a thick folder and a stapled packet. She wore a navy coat and held her pen like she had done this before. She looked up when she saw Derek. "Director Holt?" she asked. Derek's voice tried to find its polish again. "Yes. Who are you?" She slid a card across the desk without smiling. "I'm here to provide documentation associated with an incident report." My mouth went dry. She turned her attention to me. "Maria Santos?" I nodded once. She lifted the stapled packet and tapped the top page with her pen. "Incident report number," she said, and read it out loud. 27641. Numbers always anchored reality. I felt that number land in my chest and stay there. I'm not a disruption. I'm a record. 27641. The security man shifted closer to Derek, like he expected noise. I didn't make any. I stepped forward and rested my fingertips on the edge of the visitor desk, grounding myself in the cold laminate. "What is this for?" I asked. The woman opened her folder and pulled out a single page, then placed it on the counter without pushing it toward anyone. "It was filed this morning," she said. "It references an allegation involving company documents and attempted removal. ADS. However," Derek exhaled like relief, sharp and mean. Noah's shoulders loosened, like he thought the room had tilted back in his favor. I stared at the page. I did not touch it yet. "Attempted removal," I repeated. "Yes," she said. "It requests that you be advised of the report number and the next steps." Next steps. That phrase again. Always a trap when someone else owned the schedule. I kept my hands still, then asked the question that mattered. "Who filed it?" The woman's eyes flicked down to a line near the bottom. "Filed by," she read, "Derek Holt." My gaze slid to Derek's face. He looked at the ceiling, like he didn't want to meet my eyes. Noah let out a short laugh, too loud for this small space. "See?" he said. "This is why you don't give her access." Access. Like my 15 years here were a key they could snatch. I turned my head toward Noah. "You have 2 deposits going to an account ending in 4412, I said, quiet. "That's not access. That's a pipeline." Noah's face changed so fast it almost looked like a glitch. His lips parted. His eyes darted to Derek, then to the woman at the desk, then to the security man. He didn't deny it. Derek snapped, "Maria, stop." I looked back at the woman and kept my voice measured. "I work payroll and compliance," I said. "If there is an allegation on record, I need to respond on record." The woman nodded once, like that was reasonable. I reached for the page then. I touched the top corner and slid it closer, reading without lifting it. The language was neat, formal, and ugly. It painted me as the risk. I saw the timestamp. Filed 8:26 a.m. That was before the all-hands announcement, before I said a word in the conference room, before Derek texted security. He filed this before he faced me. My pulse slowed in a way that scared me. This wasn't a reaction. This was a plan. I'm not the problem they found today. I'm the problem they scheduled. I lifted my eyes to Derek. "You filed this at 8:26, I said. "Why?" Derek's throat worked once. "Because you're unstable," he said, and his voice was loud enough to carry. The word unstable hung in the lobby like a bad smell. Janice's phone rose a little, almost by itself. Rena stepped in from the side then, face pale. "Derek," she whispered, warning in her tone. But Derek was past warning. He leaned closer, like he wanted to push me into a corner with language. "You will hand over whatever you have," he said. "Now." I didn't move. I reached into my pocket slowly and pulled out my keys, letting the metal rest in my palm, not as a threat, as a reminder that I still controlled my own hands. Then my phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number. "Check your partner's account." He signed the request. The police station lobby smelled like wet wool and burnt coffee. A television in the corner played the weather on mute, and the front desk glass had old fingerprints smeared in arcs. I stood at the counter with my red tab folder pressed flat under my palm. The stapled incident packet sat beside it like a dare I didn't ask for. Behind the glass, a front desk officer glanced between me and Derek Holt, then down at the incident report number written in thick black ink. 27641. Derek stood 2 feet to my left, shoulders squared like he owned the building. Noah hovered behind him, badge lanyard twisted around his finger. Reena Patel had followed us in, pale and silent, holding her purse strap like it was a handle keeping her upright. Janice Morrow lingered near the entrance, pretending to read a poster about parking rules while her phone sat ready at chest height. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, that unknown number still sitting on my screen like a thumbprint. "Check your partner's account." He signed the request. I didn't show the message to anyone. I didn't need to. It had already done its job. I lifted my gaze to the front desk officer. "I want to respond to that incident report," I said, keeping my voice calm. "And I want to file a report about payroll diversion." Derek gave a short laugh, sharp and public. "She's spiraling," he said, loud enough for the lobby. The officer's face stayed neutral, but his eyes tightened. "Ma'am, what do you mean by payroll diversion?" I opened my red tab folder and slid out one printed page. Warm paper, fresh toner smell. I held it at the top corners and pushed it toward the glass slot. "This is the direct deposit batch detail for Noah Holt," I said. 2 deposits, same day, same amount, secondary account ending in 4412. Noah's head snapped up. "That's private," he said, voice rising. "It's payroll," I said. "It's regulated." Derek leaned in toward the glass. "That document was obtained improperly." I didn't look at Derek. I kept my eyes on the officer. "I printed it as part of my duties," I said. "There is no signed request form attached in our system." The officer held up one finger, then turned and spoke to someone out of sight. A chair scraped. A drawer opened. A pen clicked. I could hear my own breathing too clearly. I smoothed the edge of my page once. Twice. That was my tell when I wanted to keep from shaking. "Say it once more." "On record." Derek's jaw flexed. "We are not discussing internal payroll at a police station," he said, trying to take control back. I finally looked at him. "Then you shouldn't have filed a police incident to trap me," I said. Reena flinched at the word trap. Her eyes flicked toward the officer, then away. The officer returned with a second man, older, heavier in the shoulders, with a calm face that didn't hurry. He read the number on the top of the packet. 27641, he said, then looked at me. "You're Maria Santos." I nodded. "Payroll and compliance lead." He looked at Derek. "And you filed this." Derek lifted his chin. "Yes." She attempted to remove company documents. The older officer tapped the paper once with his index finger, then looked back at me. "Do you have the documents?" I slid the addendum out next, the one with my name crossed out. I placed it on the counter and kept my fingertip on the clause, the same way I did in the conference room. "Assignment effective only upon countersignature," I said. "There is no countersignature." The older officer leaned closer, reading through the glass. "Okay," he said, like the word carried weight. Then he looked at Derek again. "Do you have the countersignature page?" Derek's mouth opened, then closed. Noah shifted behind him, too fast. Reena whispered, "Derek," like a warning she was too late to deliver. I let the silence sit. Silence was a tool, too. The older officer turned back to me. "You said payroll request form is missing." "Yes," I said, "and I just received a message saying my partner signed it." My voice stayed steady, but my chest burned. Saying it out loud made it real in a way I didn't want. My partner, not missing, not confused, involved. The older officer tilted his head. "What partner?" I swallowed. "He works at the plant. He shares our household accounts." Derek cut in immediately. "This is personal drama," he snapped. "This is retaliation." I looked at the older officer again. "If a direct deposit form exists with his signature," I said, "it should be on record somewhere. If it was filed without proper process, that's fraud." I canced it. Fraud wasn't a loud word, but it changed the temperature. Noah's eyes widened. His hand tightened on his badge lanyard until the plastic bent. The older officer nodded once, then reached under the counter. He pulled out a blank form and slid it into the slot halfway, not fully giving it to me yet. "Before we go further," he said, "I need a clear timeline." I took a slow breath and spoke in anchors, not emotions. "Tuesday," I said. 8:12 in the morning, I opened a certified packet at my desk. 8:26, Derek filed this incident report. 9 o'clock, he announced Noah's new role in a conference room. 9:30. Security was called to keep me from leaving with the folder. The older officer's eyes narrowed at 8:26. "That's before the meeting," he said. "Yes," I said. "He filed it before he confronted me." The officer looked down at the packet again, then back up at Derek. Derek's voice sharpened. "We anticipated a disruption." I stared at Derek. "You scheduled it," I said quietly. 2 deposits. 1 shared account. Incident report 27641 came first. The older officer held up a hand toward Derek, palm out. "Sir," he said, voice still calm. "Step back from the counter." Derek didn't move. The officer repeated it, firmer. "Step back." Derek finally shifted 1 step, but his eyes stayed on me like he wanted to burn a hole through my ribs. Then the older officer turned his head and spoke into a radio clipped near his collar, voice low enough that I caught only pieces. "Possible false report. Employment document. Payroll diversion. Request a unit. A unit." Outside, through the station's front windows, a set of blue lights flashed once, then twice, washing the lobby walls in cold color. Noah's face drained. Derek's hand lifted toward his phone, and the older officer's voice cut through the glass. "Sir," he said, "put the phone down." Derek's phone sat in his hand like a lit match. The older officer watched it, calm and steady, waiting for a choice. Derek's thumb hovered, then froze. He lowered the phone onto the counter like it had suddenly become heavy. Noah made a small sound behind him, the start of a protest that died in his throat. The blue lights outside kept pulsing, slow and cold, painting the lobby wall in moving color. A younger officer walked in with a clipboard and a crisp posture. He didn't look at me first. He looked at Derek. "Director Derek Holt?" he asked. Derek straightened. "Yes." "Step over here, please," the younger officer said, pointing toward 2 plastic chairs against the wall. Derek glanced at Rena as if she might save him. Rena's face had gone blank, like she had left her body to survive the moment. Janice lifted her phone higher, no longer pretending. She wasn't filming for me. She was filming for the story. The older officer slid my printed payroll page back through the slot carefully, like it mattered. "Ma'am," he said to me, "we're going to take a statement. You said you have reason to believe a payroll request form was signed by someone else." I nodded. "My partner," I said, and the word tasted bitter. Rena's lips parted. She looked at me like she wanted to apologize and didn't know how to do it without admitting everything. I pulled my phone out and unlocked it with a thumb that finally shook. The unknown message still sat there. I held the screen low and angled it toward the officer. He read it once, then asked, "Do you know this number?" "No," I said, "but whoever sent it knew details." The older officer nodded and wrote something down. Derek's voice rose from the chair area. "This is insane," he said. "This is a private company matter." The younger officer didn't argue. He just asked again, quieter. "Sir, keep your voice down." Derek shut his mouth like he wasn't used to being told that. I closed my eyes for 1 second and pictured my partner's face the last time he smiled at me in our kitchen, leaning on the counter, pretending we were fine. Then I opened my eyes and looked at the glass again. "Do you want me to call him?" the older officer asked. My chest tightened. "I already tried," I said. "Straight to voicemail." Then I realized it wasn't voicemail. I swallowed. He blocked me. Splangsis, that sentence landed with more weight than any paper. I'm not losing my job. I'm losing the person who helped take it. The older officer's pen paused. "Okay," he said softly, like he understood this was 2 collapses at once. He took a blank form and slid it fully through the slot. "Write your timeline. Exact times. Exact words if you remember them." I took the pen. It felt cheap and light, but it made a line. I wrote Tuesday, 8:12, certified packet. 8:26, incident report filed. 9 o'clock, announcement. 9:30, security. I wrote the clause. I wrote the deposits. I wrote the last 4 digits. When my hand started to cramp, I stopped and smoothed the paper flat with my palm, the same motion I did with every document that tried to distort the truth. A woman on the far bench in the lobby stared at us openly. A man in work boots leaned forward, elbows on knees, listening like this was a show he didn't pay for. The station was public in a way the plant never was. There was no company culture here, no family, just record and consequence. The younger officer stepped back to the counter and spoke through the glass to the older officer, voice low but clear enough for me to catch. "Dispatch confirmed," he said. "They'll contact the company for records. Possible false report filing." False report. Those 2 words cut straight through Derek's posture. Derek stood up too fast. "I did not file a false report," he snapped. The younger officer raised a hand, calm. "Sit back down." Derek hesitated, then sat, jaw clenched. Noah took 1 step toward Derek, then stopped. He looked around the lobby like he was searching for the old rules, the ones that always bent around his last name. He didn't find them. Rena finally moved. She walked toward me, slow, and stopped at my shoulder without touching me. "Maria," she whispered, eyes glossy. "I didn't know about the deposits. I didn't look at her yet. I kept my eyes on the paper I was filling." "You knew about the packet," I said. Rena's voice broke. "I knew it was wrong," she whispered, "but Derek said it was handled." Handled. Another control word. I turned my head then. "You watched him file an incident report at 8:26, I said quietly, before he even spoke to me. Rena's face crumpled. She didn't deny it. That silence was her confession. The older officer took my statement pages and stacked them neatly. He tapped the top edge twice, squaring them. "All right," he said. "We'll open a case file. We'll request the payroll request form and the employment paperwork from the company." He looked at me. "Do you have a safe place to go tonight?" The question hit hard because it wasn't about work. My voice stayed steady anyway. "Yes," I said. "I can." I didn't say where. I didn't say I wasn't sure. The younger officer moved to Derek again. "Sir," he said, "we're going to need you to provide your company contact information for records requests." Derek tried to smile. It looked like pain. "Of course," he said, and his voice was suddenly polite. Noah backed toward the exit like he might slip out. The younger officer's eyes flicked to him. "And you," the officer said, "stay here." Noah froze. In the lobby window, my reflection looked older than it did that morning. Not broken, just sharp at the edges. 2 hours later, I stood outside the station under a gray sky and watched my breath turn white. My phone buzzed with a new message. Not from my partner, from Janice. "Everyone's talking." Derek got escorted back inside. I stared at the screen until the words stopped moving. Then I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and didn't start it right away. I opened my red tab folder on my lap, just enough to see the addendum and the printed deposit page. I smoothed the papers once, slow. I took the red tab and pressed it down firmly, sealing the stack like a choice. I went home alone, but I went with my name intact.